so be free to make notes, but we will be sharing it so you can watch it again afterwards. And there will be opportunities to ask questions at the end, but if you want to pop them into the question box, the chat box whilst we're going along, then we'll try and answer some as we're going. So my name's Emma. I'm the founder of the Saltways, and we make ethical and effective films for the third sector. I'm just going to show you a little video that kind of gives you an overview of what we do, and then we'll get cracking straight on with the session.
There is a tendency in some documentary filmmaking and in the charity sector for you to be viewing someone through a lens, which you are practically, but you want the feeling when you're telling ethical storytelling that you're with someone and they're telling you their story, and it's done with respect.
Give people space and time, because those are the two most important things. And I think just treating the story with respect is really important to me.
You want people to care, then you just let someone see the human behind the story.
Great, so that should probably just give you a bit of an introduction to who we are. And having come from a charity background, it's really important to me that we share learnings and skills with the sector. So we deliver these workshops on topics that we find people talking about and that we feel that we can help you with. So today we're just going to be talking about what is fundraiser content creation. And then we're very lucky to be joined by Becky from Just Giving, who's going to be talking through things from their perspective in terms of content that works, that they've seen work well. We're going to talk you through two examples of real life case studies where this has been used, the process that we've gone through to kind of help people to create their own content. And then we're going to just touch on some technical tips that you can share with fundraisers in terms of how to get good quality content from their phones. And then hopefully we'll have a good amount of time at the end for questions and answers. But like I said, you can just pop them in the chat as we're going, and we'll try our best to answer them as we're going through. So yeah, just to give this a bit of context, so fundraiser created content is authentic, real-time stories and moments captured by fundraisers during their fundraising journey. And it can include photos, videos, social media posts, anything that documents their experiences and impact. And I think there's kind of two sides to this, and that I'll be talking about these a bit later on, but there's, well, three really. There's content that you can capture yourselves as a charity at a fundraising event. There's content that people can capture while they're, training for a marathon, or they're doing a fun run, or they're hosting an event. And then there's also fundraising content that you can encourage people to capture for you that can be used as part of fundraising campaigns like the Big Give or a Christmas campaign. So we're going to kind of talk about the different approaches to that. And it's important because firstly, it's authentic because it's from the voices of the people that are your biggest cheerleaders, really, that are supporting you. It has an immediate impact, so it can be shared straight away, normally with not too much work, which makes it very cost effective because you don't have to work with agencies or videographers. There's a personal connection, and that's with you and the fundraiser and their supporters, your organisation and the wider public. So there's just this real personal touch and human connection. And also it can just have a wider reach. So your fundraisers are more likely to share this content because they're in it, and they've created it, which means that they're reaching an audience that you probably wouldn't through organic or paid ads. Without having to pay for ads. So you are reaching a wider audience with this sort of created content. So now I'm going to pass on to Becky, who's going to talk us through what they found works from their experience of Just Giving.
Fab. I will just share my screen. Cool. So can everyone see that? All good. Fab. So yeah, I'm Becky. I work at Just Giving as a community manager, which is a nice way of saying I manage our social media channels. Just a little bit about me. I'm originally from Leeds, if you can hear an accent. I've worked at Just Giving for 3 years now, and I'm really passionate about all things social media. So I create content for both fundraisers and charities, and I'm really lucky that I get to spend a lot of my working days reading about some of the most inspiring fundraisers from all over the UK. In my role, I create a lot of video content. Last year, I made over 210 TikToks, which is crazy, most of which were based at fundraising events. So today, I'd just like to share some tips for finding and creating events-based video content. So we'll start with a quick overview of social media as it is right now. Then I'll share my top 5 tips for creating video content at fundraising events. And then I'll just finish with exactly how your charity can use user-generated content across your own social media channels. So I just thought I'd start with a bit of an overview on social media in 2025 and how much it's changed in recent years. So people expect a lot more from social nowadays. They're sort of trading the rigid formality of social for shorter, snappier, and more unusual content, a lot of it being video. Brands are becoming a lot more people-focused and showing the faces behind the company and hopping on viral trends to appeal to new and younger audiences. That's why brands like Duolingo and Ryanair are seeing a lot of success on social. Interestingly, with platforms like TikTok on the rise, we're seeing a bit of a shift in influencer culture. So we're still getting the traditional polished influencer on platforms like Instagram, but with TikTok's algorithm allowing creators to go viral regardless of their following, we're getting a whole new branch of influencers called reliable idols. And these creators are very regular, down-to-earth, everyday people, and they might have a smaller following or less polished content, but they have more trustworthy, relatable voices, so people are really drawn to them. And that's sort of where your charity supporters and fundraisers might fall. Everyday people doing amazing things for the causes they love. And online audiences really love to see those stories. It makes for really lovely, feel-good content. People are often quite touched when they hear about the motivations behind a fundraiser, or they might have gone through a similar life experience themselves. So there are some really great fundraisers out there who make fantastic video content that really tells their personal story and conveys the importance of their chosen cause. That's what I wanted to talk a little bit about today. So you can hopefully encourage your fundraisers to create similar content of their own. So my first tip for creating really strong video content for fundraising events is encouraging your supporters to put their story and fundraising motivations at the heart of their video. Our first example comes from the FTD brothers, Jordan and Kian, who make really incredible, hard-hitting content about their fundraising for Alzheimer's Research UK. I'll play their video so you can hear their story.
This is me and my brother Kian. I'm 28 and he's 23. We are 2 of the youngest people in the UK to be given a dementia diagnosis. Having watched and cared for our mum live with a rare type of frontotemporal dementia, we then found out that we had a 50% chance of inheriting the MAPT gene that causes the symptoms. After losing our nan, auntie and mum to this cruel disease, we eventually decided to get tested. And 2018 and earlier this year, we both received the same positive diagnosis that we will one day become symptomatic with frontotemporal dementia. Sadly for us, there is no reasonable cure for dementia, meaning we'll be most likely to lose our lives in our early 50s. But the hard reality is that 1 in 2 people will be devastated by dementia in their lifetime. That's why we want to take action. Following my own diagnosis in 2018, I took on various challenges in order to raise awareness and funds for vital research for Alzheimer's Research UK. So hopefully we can lead to a prevention symptoms and one day a cure for all types of dementia. Kian and I.
So as you can see, John and Kian are really incredible people and they work really tirelessly to raise funds for Alzheimer's research. They also do a great job of sharing their story and motivations for fundraising online. The montage style of the video is quite personal and it sort of invites you into their lives. The voiceover is something you could maybe ask your own supporters to implement in video content because the narration sort of brings you into the story and helps viewers feel a bit more connected to the cause. So Jordan and Kian are incredibly open and honest throughout, explaining exactly what motivated them to fundraise and how they're doing so. They say exactly what donations would mean to them, in this case, funding future research into Alzheimer's. They share content like this across all of their social media platforms, particularly Instagram and TikTok, and have gone on to raise £259,000 for their cause. Just to sum up, when making video content, encourage your supporters to put their fundraising motivations at the center of their video and maybe use voiceovers to help potential donors connect with their cause. So the second tip is just keeping things simple. Lots of people can find creating video content and putting themselves out there online quite intimidating, but your supporters can create really effective video content without needing professional level editing skills or even much more than a phone and something to rest it on. So Connor Swindles is a really great example of this. He is an actor, so he's definitely used to being on camera, but he shared this super simple, informal video explaining his fundraising, which drove thousands of people to donate to Bowel Cancer UK.
Hello, Connor Swindles here. I'm recording in front of a lot of books, so I look more smart than I am. I'm wearing a hat because I'm hiding a stupid haircut that I've got for a film I'm doing at the moment. All of that means nothing. I'm here to say, finally, that I have partnered with Bowel Cancer UK. I'm going to be running the Brighton Half Marathon in February 2024. And I want to raise as much money as I possibly can to fund vital research into bowel cancer. For those of you that don't know, my mum lost her battle with bowel cancer about 20 years ago now, so I'm obviously going to be running along with her and running for those who are currently struggling or have struggled in the past. If you can donate, that'd be fantastic. I've set up a Just Giving page. I'm going to put a link in my bio. If you can't donate, that's fine. If you can share the message, that'd be fantastic. Okay, big thumbs up. Brighton Half. Let's do it.
Connor does a really amazing job of explaining how he's fundraising and exactly what impact a donation would have. Because he's just sat and he's speaking to the camera with little to no edits or cuts, it sort of just feels like you're having a very genuine conversation with a friend. And for any of your supporters who are maybe hesitant about creating video content around their fundraising, I would let them know they don't need to do anything extreme or overly complicated. Sometimes just sitting down and talking very genuinely to a camera is more than enough, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So the third tip is exactly what it says on the tin, just asking your supporters to film their challenge. So whether that's filming training, on the day content, or even clips of fundraisers crossing the finish line, people online love to see people succeed and achieve their goals, especially when it's for a good cause. So this is a really lovely example from Gary McKee, one of our fundraisers who ran a marathon every day in 2022.
It's my today night.
This sort of video allows potential donors to see all the hard work a fundraisers put into their challenge, which might just make them a little bit more likely to make a donation. Plus, it's a really wonderful thing for the fundraiser to look back on and charities to share to their own social media channels with permission, of course. That being said, if you'd like to have a little bit more creative control with your social media content, or maybe your fundraisers are just a little bit nervous about creating their own videos, you can always give them a helping hand. So a really lovely way to make video content that benefits both you and the fundraiser is to interview your fundraisers on the day of their chosen fundraising event, usually at the finish line. So this is something the Just Giving team do a lot at events, and we found it really drives a lot of engagement and conversation online. In fact, when we introduced interviews to our content plan for the London Marathon, our impressions more than doubled. So we went from 3.2 million impressions in 2023 to 6.6 million impressions in 2024. So it's really a great way to get more eyes on your cause. So finding your fundraisers after they finish an event and asking them a few questions about how their day went, what exactly your cause means to them, it's a really great way to capture content that tells their story and also conveys your charity's mission. It helps your supporters feel celebrated whilst generating a really feel-good, emotionally compelling human style of content. So here's a quick example of when we met up with Connor Swindles at the finish line of the Brighton Half Marathon.
I ran because my mother died of bowel cancer 20 years ago now. So I wanted to run to raise money for her, also to help fund vital research into bowel cancer. This is Bowel Cancer UK, who also provides such brilliant care for those affected currently by it as well. It's the thing I'm most proud of in my life, to be honest. So I think they're a brilliant organisation, and forbid you're affected by bowel cancer, but if you are, it's great to know that they're there.
So the final tip is about collaborating with fundraisers to strengthen your relationships with them, but also create great video content together. This might be my favorite example of the day, so I'll start with the video. This is Lloyd, one of our fundraisers, who's not only a brilliant dancer, but he also broke the record for being the youngest person with Down syndrome to run the London Marathon. Our team reached out to Lloyd's mum when we found out he was doing the New York City Marathon and asked if she'd mind filming some of his experience. And we weren't expecting her to send all these amazing clips of his dance moves. But we put this video together and invited Lloyd to collaborate with us on Instagram, which basically just means his followers and our followers would both see the post and it would appear on both of our feeds. But this is a really great way to collaborate on events-based video content, as it opens your charity up to a whole new audience and helps the fundraiser feel featured and celebrated. So how can your charity use user-generated content? You can share video content like this on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Facebook. In general, it's best to keep videos under a minute in length, but it's a great way to create a community, celebratory feel across your social media channels. If you have lots of supporters who are keen to get involved and spread the word about their fundraisers, it's almost an infinite supply of content to help build your online audience. Collaborating on video content can also help strengthen relationships between your charity's team and your supporters. And sharing content like this helps share the fundraising story whilst also driving donations. And finally, I think the most important takeaway is that this type of video content allows fundraisers to promote your charity's mission in their own words, which then might motivate a viewer to take on a fundraising challenge of their own. So just a quick recap of the top tips. So when you're making video content for fundraising events, ask your fundraisers to put their story at the center. They can keep it simple. There's no need for fancy video editing. If you like, you can interview your charity fundraisers on the day of the event. They can film their challenge and you can collaborate with them too. So that's everything I've got to share today. I hope you found it helpful and are excited to make some events-based video content of your own. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have in the Q&A segment later on, but feel free to put them in the chat.
Thanks, Becky. That was great. Thank you. Really helpful. So what I'm going to do now is kind of go into how you get your fundraisers to create that kind of content. Like, what's the sort of process that you can go through to get to that point where you've got these fantastic videos like Becky's just shared. So with this, I'm going to kind of talk about it, an overview, and then show 2 examples of charities I've worked with and the process we went to get them from that initial stage to the actual produced video. So the first stage of this is engagement. So my advice would be, it should be just more than just an email. So invest your time in connecting with your fundraisers or supporters to capture content for you. So don't just send out a blanket email saying, please can everybody create content, because it's not relationship building. They don't understand what you want. They don't understand what you need, timelines, the boundaries, any of that. So invest some time building relationships, explaining what it is that you want, before, you know, thinking about what it is that you want before you just put something out there. The way I would normally do this then, once I've established that, is do a shout out on social media for people, like, is anyone interested in sharing their story, or as part of your communication with event participants. Make sure that in that initial communication, you're really transparent about what it is that you want to achieve, what it is you want them to capture. Be really clear about that, and also lead with the impact. So instead of saying, we want some fundraisers to capture content for us so we can raise more money, it's like, what does that mean? Like, what does raising more money mean to you as an organization? So that we can help more people achieve this, so that we can reach more people through awareness. Like, that's what they're going to be driven by, not by we need to raise more money. So what is the impact of them creating this content? Also be clear about what's in it for them. So does it mean that they will be able to raise more funds? Does it mean that they are going to learn some skills? Does it mean that it might start some opportunities between you and them? Like, there should be something in it for them as well, and just be clear about that from the start. And then I could go into consent in a lot of detail, but I will just touch on it here, that make sure that when you are working with people and they are capturing content, that you do get consent from people. And that they understand that if they're filming other people, that there is a consent process, and that the people that you are asking to create content can give their informed consent to being able to share content that they've created. So once you've got people interested, they want to create some content for you, I would hold either a group online session where you can talk about it as a group, which is great for peer-to-peer support. So if you've got a group of fundraisers, or you've got a group of supporters who want to share their stories, you can have an online session where you're teaching them technical skills, you're talking about the project, get them excited, get them sharing ideas, make it feel like it's a collaborative community thing. Or if it's more of a one-to-one, have one-to-one chats with them on the phone or over email or Zoom. Really make sure that, like I said, you spend a bit of time in that bit beforehand to build those relationships. Co-create wherever possible. So it's important that people feel like they're part of the creative process and that they've had input on that. You'll get way better results if you do let people co-create with you, rather than just sending them a list of this is what we need. Explain what the film's going to be used for and what the key message is, and that will really help them understand what the kind of content you want them to capture is. So if it's, for example, we want to do a campaign at the end of the year about our amazing volunteers at fundraising events, then the kind of content you're going to want to be capturing is the volunteers at the events, and then what it looks like for that. You can share questions for them to answer if you know they do need a bit of guidance, or a list of the footage you want them to capture, with that collaboration. So you're just kind of helping them and guiding them, but you've understood together what it is that you want to achieve. And then there could be some talking points. So like, let's talk about how you felt, like how the training's gone, talk about, you know, who's here today with you, what it's meant for you to be able to do this. And then it's really good to show examples of the kind of footage you'd like them to capture. So Becky's just shared some great ones there. You could say, you know, something like this would be great, something like this would be great. It just takes away some of that fear or lack of confidence around, you know, I don't really know what it is you want me to do. So you're working with them, but you're also just supporting in every way that you can to make sure that you both have a really great experience in creating this content. And then just make sharing the footage with you as easy as possible. So I found usually the best way to do that is through WhatsApp. So if you've got the capacity to be able to do that with the work number, that's the best way I found people sharing content. Obviously you have to have some procedures in place to make sure there's safeguarding, or, you know, WeTransfer, Dropbox links. Just make sure it's as easy as possible, and that isn't a barrier, that once they've created this amazing footage, that then there isn't like, oh well, I don't know how to get it to you, so I'm just gonna not. So yeah, that's kind of the guidance that I would give to create for the people that you're working with, is just being really clear, and just making them feel like you're in it, you're doing it together. It's not just you're asking them to do something and then that's it. So to kind of bring this to life a little bit, I've got a couple of examples of charities I've worked with when I was doing fundraising, where we've done this. So the first one is a charity. These are both small charities, so it should be accessible to charities of all sizes. This is a charity called Pans Pandas UK. And this was a campaign called Challenge for Pans Pandas, where part of the Pans Pandas community, the families, corporate supporters, did a challenge in the month of July, and we asked them to capture footage of those challenges, and then we created like a montage film at the end. So I'm just going to show you the film first, and I'm going to talk you through the process that I went through to get from that initial, oh, this is a great idea, to actually having the content ready to share.
Hello, my name's Felix and I'm doing 100 miles for Pandas charity.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm doing a walk from Marlow to Henley as my challenge for Pandas UK.
And this is Steph Firth, completing her 13th 5k of Run 5k every day in July.
My name is Jacob and I'm doing 100 miles in July as my challenge for Pandas UK.
Hi, so my name is Pale and I'm 10 years old and I'm raising money for Pandas UK.
Walking the Cleveland Way from Saltburn on the sea down to Filey Brig.
My challenge is just surviving each day.
We're the Pryor family and we swam a mile in the Mediterranean as our challenge for the charity Pandas UK.
I'm Millie and I'm 9 years old and I had a bake sale to help raise money for Pandas UK, and so far I've raised over £2,000.
All the way through the finish line!
So to get from like the initial idea of, oh, we should make a video about this, to actually having that. So whilst I was working in the charity, we started off by building a Facebook group for people who'd registered to take part in the campaign. And then we asked on that group if there's anybody that would be interested in capturing content, and we were really clear about this is what it's going to be used for, this is the kind of thing we'd like you to capture. Then we had an online session with, I think it was about 30 families. We went through what do you think is important to capture, and how do you think you want people to feel when they watch this? And they wanted the audience to feel very sort of happy and excited and wanted to take part again in the future. We then sort of taught them about the technical skills, which we're going to go on to later, but keeping it kind of light touch. And then once they'd created that content, we asked them to share the content during and after the campaign, which we then entered into that montage film. We also encouraged them to share their own content too that they'd created, which loads of them did. And then this is a really important part as well, which I think some charities miss, is that once they've shared that content, it's really important that you then feed back to them about the impact that it's had. So, you know, how much it raised, the views it had on social media, the impact that it's had on you as an organisation and the people or the cause that you work for, so that they understand like, oh, I feel really great that I actually did that, and then it's going to have they've had a positive experience as well. And the next example is slightly different. So it's the different sort of example that I talked about at the start, is that this was a campaign that we worked on with a charity called Hear Me Out. And it was a fundraising campaign that was co-created with people with lived experience. But this was part of a fundraising campaign. So it's instead of asking people to film themselves doing a challenge, it was more about them sharing their stories, and then those stories being used as part of for fundraising.
Sometimes, like, people want to distance themselves away from you, and it makes you feel you don't belong here. It puts yourself down inside. You get into conversation with someone very nice, very beautiful. You talk about career, you talk about work, you talk about your visions, your potentials. And the next question is like, wait, all that you're saying, what are you doing now? Like, you can't do anything now because you're an asylum seeker. It's kind of like you're being trapped in a space where Nothing's working for you. My name is Kweku, and I'm from Ghana, and I was a 10. I tried my very best to have a positive impact in my society with the youth. When I got out from school, I started up a tailoring business where I gathered some few young people and started teaching them how to sew for free and creating an environment at home where they can feel responsible for themselves and better their lives as time goes on. I really loved what I was doing. In my time of dismay and in my time of despair, I can't do much. But one thing I know that I can do is to give what I have. And that is my sound of music. Hear Me Out saw me more than a label of being an asylum seeker. They gave me a sense of belief. They gave me a sense of hope. And encouraged me to see from the perspective of being a great person someday.
So yeah, that's a different kind of, encouraging people to capture content to fundraise. This was done as a co-created project. So we did direct outreach to people with lived experience about helping with a fundraising campaign. And then we held several co-creation sessions on the stories they wanted to tell and what they wanted the call to action to be. And then we taught them the basic technical skills of capturing that content. But we also used, as you can see with Kwaku, that there was other bits of content that he contributed himself that was, from when he was in Ghana. We decided on the messaging and the theme of the content together, and then we edited it in-house, but we had lots of feedback rounds with Kwaku and other participants. And again, that really important last step of sharing it and feeding back on how much had been raised and what the impact of that content had been. So it's a different way of looking at it, but you can also encourage your supporters or people with lived experience to capture content to help you with fundraising campaigns, as well as the other side of fundraising. So I guess more sort of individual giving versus community fundraising. And now we're going to go into some technical tips that you can share with your fundraisers. I'm going to hand over to Pete, who's our creative director, to go through this. But I would just say that we've kind of stripped this back a lot from the 1 hour workshops we deliver, because it's when you're sharing this with people who are just doing this for you to capture their own story, or to capture an event, or to capture their training. You don't really want to overload them with too much technical information. So we've kind of come up with this really snappy acronym of SNAF. So we just asked them to focus on sound, natural light, atmosphere, and framing. And I'm going to hand over to Pete, who's going to kind of take us through the stuff that we go through with people to get good quality content.
Hi, yeah, I'm Pete. I'm a creative director at the Saltways, and have been a camera operator and cinematographer on documentaries for a number of years. But I think most of the things, like mobile phones and the cameras on them, or the videos that you can make on them now, are such high quality and they do a lot of automatic things in the background that kind of help you out. But there's still tips, I think, that you can take that will just make better looking content. So here's some quick tips just that you can kind of give to anyone or take for yourselves. So firstly, let's go with sound. So sound is 50% of any video you make. It's really important to get good sound. And here's some tips. So find a space that is quiet and out of the wind. So wind is still like an absolute killer for sound. It just kind of like gets rid of all the frequencies. So like you start to hear that really thin sound and the sound of wind kind of just brushing away all the frequencies. So I would always be mindful of that when you're going to start shoot something. Just think, oh, where am I? Where's the wind, basically? If you're outdoors, especially. And so what I would always do is take some headphones with you, anyway, and just if you, especially if you're recording dialogue, it doesn't matter so much if you're doing an event and it just has to be, like the ambience of the place, the energy of the place. But if you're having someone talking, I would always just have a listen back to just do a little test, record a little bit on your phone, then listen back to it. And then you can just then adjust. So go move somewhere else if it's too loud or whatever. It's you can just kind of adjust it as you're going, and that kind of goes with all of the stuff on your phone. I would always be kind of just reviewing stuff as I go, because you can always, get better, just take tips from just watching the stuff back. Um, if you can get an external microphone, these are cheap and make a huge difference. You can also use wireless headphones. So most like Bluetooth, wireless headphones, or even the wired ones, if you still use those, if anyone does, have a little microphone built into them, and that eliminates some of the sound issues you might have, because the microphone is stuck to the person who's talking. Um, so when you're recording someone, if you don't have a microphone, the microphone is on the phone. So really, you want the phone to be as close to the person who's talking as possible, and that will get you the better sound most of the time. Especially if you're in a noisy environment, say if you're at some event and someone's talking, then the closer your phone is to the person who's talking, then the less of the background you're going to get, more of the voice of the person who's talking. Yeah, test the audio. We've gone through that, and then if you're filming an event, don't worry too much about noise. It's just, yeah, I mean, like you still want to be able to hear the person. So but the background noise in an event can also add to the atmosphere of the video anyway. So especially if you want energy, if it's about having energy to it. So I wouldn't worry too much then, but then I would worry about things that are distracting, just like, cars or wind or just roadworks, things that you don't want to hear. That's the kind of background noise that I would try and eliminate. And then natural lighting. So the best possible light is always natural light, so sunlight. And you want kind of, and when we go for natural light, most of the time you want reflective light, not direct light. So being stood directly in the sun most of the time doesn't look very nice. Where if you do shoot in the sun, if you are outside and the sun is, there are no clouds dissipating the light, I would always have the sun just kind of behind the person, about a 45-degree angle or what, like behind a person, which sounds slightly counterintuitive, but that is actually the best place for it to be. As long as it's not as long as you can't see it in the frame, the sun, then you shouldn't get too much of a problem. And that means the person who's looking into the camera, if that's you or you're filming someone else, isn't squinting as well into the sun. So we've got two examples here of one, which is this is indoors now, but we're still using natural light. In the top one, we can see that this hasn't really been very well exposed, we call it. Like he's too dark, the outside is too light, and then the kind of blinds behind him are the only thing that actually look like they're properly exposed. What you want to do is move that person away from the window. And this goes for kind of anything you can just sort of see, because you've got a real time, feedback from on your camera. You can just look and see exactly how it's going to look when you upload it or put it onto a bit of editing software. So with what we've done in the image below is just move the person away. So you've still got this reflective light, but now it's on the side of her face and it's kind of behind her as well. And you're getting kind of nice separation as well in the room. So behind her, she's separated from the background. It's just not using any lights that are in the room. We're just using the same sort of amount of light, but just positioning them in a different place. Atmosphere. So this is just really important for all of this stuff, especially if you're doing short clips. Like you want atmosphere to be there immediately. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It's like I would always encourage people, if you, especially if you're doing like, say it's events, fundraising things, is just to get in and amongst the action with your phone. It just creates much more of an atmosphere. So you don't really want to be stood back taking a photo like it's your nan doing it on a disposable camera in the 90s or something. It's like you want to get in there and start moving around and seeing what people are doing. Show us your world. So uh, I think you can also there are certain things that feel like they are boring for you because they're your everyday work. But like, things you do around the office or just like little bits and bobs or that you can capture and they might be used for sale of, you might use them not for this video but something down the line, or just you can upload it and give people a sense of what your company does, and it doesn't all have to be this really exciting stuff. And then get on their level. So you want your phone most of the time to be, or the kind of camera on your phone to be at the at eye level of the person that you're filming. So that kind of means like, especially if you're shooting with kids or different people, is like go down to that level, like again, getting in and amongst it, be sort of, it just makes it much more engaging and it feels like you're with the person as well when you're watching it. And then, again, use movement. So yeah, don't stick there and shoot. Get in and amongst it. Framing. So how to frame a shot. So these shots here are on the right hand side, a shot in landscape, which is what I would shoot in most of the time. And when we shoot in landscape, we tend to put someone off just to the third of the frame. Which just looks more pleasing. If you're shooting in portrait, then you tend to put them centrally, which also just looks, again, more pleasing. If someone is talking directly to the lens, you would put them in the center of frame anyway, because that just kind of mirrors how you speak to someone. So it makes it more engaging when you're watching it on your phone, I guess. So avoid cluttered or distracting backgrounds. So yeah, you just don't want things that are ugly in the background that are going to distract from the person who's in frame if you are doing an interview or whatever. Avoid using digital zoom on the camera. It can reduce quality. Simply move closer or further away. Yeah, when you do zoom on your camera, if you're not zooming if you're not zooming or switching between the lenses, if you have more than one lens on your camera, then all you're doing is you're zooming and you're just doing a digital zoom. So really, you're just doing something that you could do after. So I would always avoid that because you're just getting rid of options that you could do when you're editing it or playing with it later. Because you can always zoom in when you're in an edit. So I would always just avoid doing that. And then if you want to like punch in or crop in on something specifically, do it after. Give yourself the option. And then frame your subject. Yes, there we've done that. Keep the camera steady. Yeah. So I would always what you can do is use a mobile tripod if you want, which I would do sometimes if I don't want to have to worry about framing, say if I'm doing a little interview with someone or something. But otherwise, I would just say just kind of like lock your arms into your chest and just keep it as steady as possible. There are like, your phone does a lot of like smoothing out, but I think still trying to keep it as steady as possible gets the best quality video from it anyway.
Great, thanks, Pete. So yeah, I think I found that just going through those basic things of sound, check your sound, be in natural light, get into the atmosphere, and make sure that your framing is good, so you're not cutting off people's heads, and you can see the people that you want to be featured. If you just communicate those 4 things to your people who are capturing content, you are going to get better content from them.
I know. I would just add as well that that practice makes perfect with this stuff. So watch it back, like watch the things, try something, watch it back, and then just be constantly like improving and trying this stuff out. If you're going to be doing it more, if you trying to get people to make more videos for you, just be kind of open to feedback.
Yeah. So I just want to quickly, before we move on to some Q&A, we are really excited to be launching a new program that we've created next week, which is called the Community Studio. It's a learning program that's pre-recorded, and it teaches nonprofits how to plan, film, edit, and then launch and review videos using just their phones. And it comes with PDFs on like consent forms, risk assessments, everything that you'll need to be able to create really engaging content. We're launching it on Thursday. We have got a wait list for people that we'll be giving 20% to. So we'll put that in the chat, the link to sign up, and we'll also share it in the email after. But yeah, it's been really designed for the charity sector. So we hope that some of you will take us up on that and that you'll find it helpful. Yeah, so thanks. We've kind of covered all that now, so we can go to some questions and answers, hopefully.
Hi, yeah. So we've had a few questions come through, and some have been covered in the chat already. So I'll try and go through the other ones. There's been a few questions around equipment, which we've mostly covered. Someone's asked if, probably this one's for Peter, are there any phones that you would particularly recommend based on having a tight budget?
I mean, I think most people have a phone that would work anyway. Like if you've got a phone, like I mean, we've had content that's been created on, phones that are 10 years old but because it's good quality content, like because it's engaging content that you're filming, then it doesn't really matter. I think it's more to do with what you're filming and having the thought around that. I think that's the more important thing in my point of view, from my point of view.
Great, thank you. And another one for you as well. Could you recommend a tool for editing short clips together?
Yeah, well, we have. I mean, there are a lot of options available to you for free now. I think a lot of people use CapCut now as like because it's a browser-based editing piece of software, but also and we do a thing on that in our community studio, a little how to kind of get you working on CapCut. But the one thing I would say is also if you're just doing quick content as well, like Reels and TikTok, a lot of them have and even YouTube as well has an inbuilt editor in them anyway with like a music library and captions and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, there are a lot of options out there. We've also do a list in our community studio workshop. There's a list in there of different ones you can use as well.
Thank you. This one's probably for Emma or Becky. Are there specific types of stories that resonate more with funders or donors compared to community members?
Is that in terms of stories for fundraising or more like the fundraising event stuff, do you think?
I think if we go with fundraising event.
I think it's more about the things that I found work well is when people are talking about why it is which I think Becky covered, of why it is they're fundraising for your organization, like what's their connection to it, what's motivated them to do it. And also just if it's talking about the reality of it. So if there is, I always say, film yourself when the days where you don't want to go training, like film yourselves the days where you just are like, I don't want to do this today, but I'm doing it because this is more important than me not wanting to get out of bed at 5 a.m. And then film the joy once they've actually done something and what that has meant to them. I think that's always, that kind of story is always really engaging for people to watch. So like the personal connection, the reality of it, and then what it meant to them once they've completed their challenge or event. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Becky.
No, I agree. I think it's just about telling the fundraising story in a way that people will resonate with it if they've gone through maybe something similar themselves. And yeah, like you say, just showing all angles of the fundraising and the realities of it.
I think that the best follow-up question is usually how did that make you feel? And sometimes people forget to kind of add that, because they're thinking so much about the content, like the events, and not about how it made them feel at the same time. So I think that's always a way to make anyone connect with the story, is the feeling behind it as well.
Thank you. Another one here. I think this was put through when Becky was talking, so it might be aimed towards you, but I think from a charity perspective, how do you choose who to feature in terms of sharing their Just Giving page and stories, and not being worried about showing everyone's pages, which is probably unlikely to be able to be done?
It's a good question. I think we're really lucky because we have so many wonderful fundraisers and crowdfunders. And as much as we'd love to, we can't share them all. But we tend to pick pages that have a really strong story or lots of detail on their page, or pages with really strong video or photos on there. But in general, just pages that really tell the motivations behind their fundraising. Other times, maybe it's relevant to something happening in the news or things happening around the world, or like set awareness days throughout the year. But yeah, mainly story and strong visual content to go alongside it, because that does well on social.
Thank you. Last one, I think, unless anybody wants to turn the mic off and ask a question, because we've got a couple of minutes left. This last one is a little bit unrelated, I think, but are there any awards or recognition or competitions, or other ways to get recognition for content that's created without a budget? The person who asked this referred to like the Smiley Film Awards. So any alternative options to that? I'm not sure if you know any, Emma.
I mean, there's loads like the Smiley Charity Film Awards. We have had, and in fact, we've got a charity in the finalists now that created the content using their phone. So there is definitely still, you should definitely still enter that if you've got stuff that's been created by your supporters. But I think it's more about, I think that like entering the films into an award is more for the charity. I think the people who've created it aren't as bothered about that. I think, from my experience anyway, they're more bothered about you saying to them, because of you, that film was viewed 2,000 times, which is 2,000 people that have never heard of us before, and it raised £400 that we can see was linked to that. And that means that because of that, we can use that funding to be able to help more people like this, or we can do that, we can do that. I think that's the kind of recognition that I found resonates more with people who've created content, is actually following up with them about, wow, that's made such a difference. And not just straight away, like I would put something in my diary to follow up with them again after 6 months, especially if it's someone that spent ages creating loads of bits of content. I think, again, like I said, I feel like that's sometimes the missing part of the journey, that the charities don't do that follow-up bit, which is really important from an ethical point of view, I think.
Thank you. I think that's it for questions. There have been a couple of comments and questions about the community studio sign up. I think the link possibly isn't working. So, but just to let you know, there will be a follow-up email. So we'll have all the information with prices and everything on there as well. So you'll be able to have a read about it.
I mean, I can answer about the price because it really annoys when people don't tell you how much things cost. And sorry. So it's £165. If you sign up to the wait list, you'll get 20% discount. You have access for up to 6 months. It's per charity, so you can share it if you want to with other people in your organisation. Yeah, we've tried to keep it as low cost as possible to make sure that even small charities can access it as well. But yeah, and it's only going to be open for 8 weeks as well, and then we'll close it so we can work on it and then re-release, hopefully open it again at the end of the year.
Great, thank you. I think that's it for questions. So thank you all for coming.
And yeah, keep an eye on our website because we just keep adding more of these kind of sessions. We've got another one about grant fundraising in April, and then we've just added another date for a session on ethical filmmaking as well in May. So yeah, just keep an eye on our website. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to end it, Sarah. I'll speak to you later.
Okay, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.